Gary Vee, as he's popularly known, the co-founder of a software company named Resi, once said that an organization's culture is the backbone of the organization. Why is that? This is exactly what we'll be talking about on the CEED Chat today. I am Adekemi Adefisayo, and you are welcome to the CEED Chat, a show that gives you all-round management education pertaining to your business growth. Keep watching. Like I said just before we went on that break, we're going to be talking about something so interesting on the CEED Chat today. And it's a conversation that has come up a lot recently where you hear people say, oh, I love the culture of that company, so I'm going to stay with them. And some say, oh my God, they're so toxic, I can't deal, I'm leaving. And there's just a lot of buzz around this particular topic of an organization's culture. But once again, a big question is always, what's culture? Right? I mean, why is it so important? And some people, and you are probably asking that question at the moment. Today, I have someone who I had to beg the last time. I'm like, please come, please come. It's like, if you'll be here, then I'll come. Well, here I am. And you might think we did the matching, dress rehearsal just before we got on the show, but we did not. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make welcome Dr. Smith Bam.
How are you?
How are you doing today, sir?
Better than you.
You came. Okay, I'm ready. I'm not going to take that to heart. Better than me. Yeah, that's great. Next show, I'll probably be way better, doing way better than you.
Bring it on.
I won't ask you, so you don't have to tell me that. So, how have you been?
Again.
It's great to have you on the show.
Better than you.
It's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, same here.
And are you excited for what we're talking about today?
I think it's a very dangerous topic. Yeah, I think it's a topic we run away from. Because of what it makes you do, but nobody wants to get involved in it. But let's talk about it.
We have to. What is an organization's culture? Let's unpack that. What does it mean for an organization to have a culture?
It's actually really simple. Culture is way of life. That's all. So when you put organization beside it, it becomes
an organization's way of life.
That's it. The way we do things here.
Why is it so important for organizations?
Because we cannot function beyond our behaviors. The way we do things. You have your own personal culture. I have my own culture. So imagine the two of us having conflicting cultures, working in an organization. It's going to be problematic. And you see people say, well, that company has a better culture than this other organization. I don't necessarily agree with them.
Okay.
Because culture suits people differently.
Okay.
I may work into a company where they have a culture that suits my culture. It enables my own culture, so I enjoy that company. And you could actually work at the same company and you don't like it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So a lot of times, the culture of the staff must be in alignment with the culture of that organization. But most people don't look for jobs asking questions about culture. Yeah, it's always about money.
What's the salary? What's the revenue?
So they get into the system and realize the cultural conflicts.
Wow.
And you cannot change an organization's culture. Either you leave this organization or you adapt to their culture. They were existing before you. So if you don't like the culture, the way of life, the way they do things here, some companies, when you work there, they tell you, call me by my first name. In this place, we call each other by the first name. That's the culture. That's the way of life. In some places, you lose your head for calling your boss Brown. How are you? Like, who's your mate?
Who's Brown?
Who's your mate? There's nothing wrong with either of the two cultures. It's just the way they do things here.
Wow.
And if it doesn't suit the way you do your own thing, either you don't join them or you adapt to that culture.
Okay, so just before we go on to strengthening organizations, cultures, and things like that, I want us to take it from the roots, right? And assume there's someone watching right now who doesn't even have a culture in their organization. So how does that kind of company, how does that kind of organization form a culture? What are the foundational, principles and the values that they have to say, okay, this is what we're looking out for. This is what we should be looking out for, and we say this is how we operate.
Every organization is the extended shadow of the leaders. So it is impractical to have a system that doesn't have a culture. As long as it has a founder or founders or leaders it already has a culture. They may not have clarified the culture. They may not have written it down in terms of core values and behavioral expectations and all of that, and company policies and all of that. Those are the extension or the expression of the culture. So once a company starts, it already has a culture.
Wow.
It does. And see, culture is defined by the leadership of that system. So before we talk about the company, the staff, first of all, you need to ask yourself, what values do the leaders of that organization, what values are important to them? You see companies that tell you that part of their core values, you have things like competitiveness. You have things like customer service. Now, you have two different values of competitiveness, and you want us to collaborate in the organization.
How?
How? You want us to be competitive. At the same time, we have to collaborate.
Share ideas.
See,
Why?
so you see, that doesn't make any sense. But then, they already have a system. They have a way of life. But if you want to ask me, how do you now know a company's way of life? How do you know a company's, all of that? It's tricky. What a company writes out, sometimes it's not what they live in. The organizations know exactly the right English to print for you to see. We care about our staff. Beautiful.
But do you really care?
Yeah. Or they say things like, as simple as, we are innovative. How many experiments have you conducted in your company? Every time a staff makes a mistake, do we crucify the staff? Are staff given autonomy to do things and make mistakes? Since we are innovative, innovation can be messy. Innovation requires that you give us autonomy. But if you micromanage your staff and your core value says innovation, that's a conflict. So it's hard to say, how do you know a company's values? And you would want to say by what they write, by what they put out there, until you get in there before you can actually feel the pulse of really if they live out what they preach to people.
Very interesting, right? So there has to be an alignment in what you say and what you do. And as an individual going into a workplace, you don't expect the whole company to change just because, you stepped in. And even from very basic things sometimes, how you make your hair, how you dress. And people say, oh, my hair doesn't define me. But in this company, your hair defines you. So what are we going to do about that? And so employees are supposed to be able to align as well and fall in line when it comes to an organization's culture. But you made mention of something when there's a mismatch, right? You say something else, but you do something else. How can an organization bridge that gap so that they are one with their message? How do you bridge a gap in culture in an organization?
I think it's an integrity test. It's an integrity test. And there's no how. If the leaders have integrity, they want to live by the values they espouse. But if you don't have integrity, you will keep saying it, but you won't be doing it. Now, here's what happens. When you bring in a new staff into the system, many times the new staff, in quote, wants a cultural change. Or wants the company to adjust to certain things. And once you don't fit, they check out.
Can we break a little? Would you say this is one of the problems that we have? Gen Zs. How did you know where I was going? Yeah. Is this it?
Exactly.
How can it be managed? Because it's a question on most leaders' mind. Like most executives are like, how can I deal with these guys?
I'm trying to be professional and not bring my personal prejudice and bias into it. In my line of work, I meet the Gen Zs, there's nothing wrong with them. We just have generational cultures that differ. And some of the Gen Zs will need to start their own companies. Because there's a whole lot they do in my own personal bias that I feel is just
out of place,
ridiculous. A Gen Z walks into your organization thinking they're Jesus.
Come to rescue you.
Rescue me from what? We were before you. When you're gone, we will still be here. Before you ever got to final year, we've been existing. Who the hell do you think you are? We're not here at your mercy. You met us here. I don't think I'm coming.
Okay.
I'm going to try. No, I get it. It's just a culture of a generation versus the culture of another generation. For people in my generation, or a little bit older than my generation, what we need to do is to be patient and have a large heart for the idiosyncrasies of the Gen Zs. They will not behave the way we think they should behave. They don't have the generational capacity. They don't even have the own training that is required to function in a company maybe run by someone like me. So we need to be, any top CEO needs to just be patient, needs to learn to ignore, needs to learn to swallow. And I think a lot of emotional intelligence has to come in where you just, all right, this is what it is. If you sack this one, the next one coming is going to be the same thing. So we have to deal with that. So CEOs, managers need to be able to accommodate.
But don't you think this will, in some way, in the bid to accommodate, also cause a bit of disgruntledness between those who already were before these Gen Zs, joined the organization? So how would you manage that?
It will. But you see, I don't know if you've ever noticed that moving into the future is always done by people who are younger. The honest truth. People who are older would like to preserve the present, do things the way we are, because it's making it profitable. But the younger generation, they have a higher risk level because they have nothing to lose. So they are willing to experiment and take risk. We need them in order to launch us into the future. They also need us in order to arrive there.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah, because they are misguided. They are passionate, but they lack a map. So we provide the map, and we use their energy and their passion to guide it into it. So here's the thing. I would always believe, I don't even know if I can tell you this. Do you know a Gen Z can actually start working here today and tomorrow morning resign?
Yeah, like I can't, don't call me past work time. Don't disturb me. I'm not ready. Yeah.
And for somebody who is way older, that's insultive. That's rude. For a Gen Z who, of course, is not married, has nothing at stake, and you'll be surprised that that person resigned to go and take pictures.
Well, something
you didn't hear me. That person resigned, and they just went to go and start taking selfie. It's not like they got another job.
They want to be content creators.
For real. I like that. I like that.
But I think something we should quickly touch on, because we're gradually coming to a close, would be how then do we ensure, because whether we like it or not, there are certain ethics, like you taught us, in the last show, the last time we were on the show, there's certain ethics that make a business function, that make a business grow. And we understand that you're innovative, we understand that you have ideas, we understand that you're bright, but how can we help them merge, these ethics with their innovativeness? What approach can CEOs, executives, aside emotional intelligence, use to make this happen so that they don't also just keep resigning and resigning? You have to be somewhere at some point.
I think something so simple, a coaching process. We need to understand it's going to take a while for them to even see a reason to adapt, So if anybody's going to get a Gen Z, the cultural, generational conflict, you just need to, I don't know how I'm going to say this. Can you imagine you're 25 and you marry a man who is 50? I
think you just explained it. Yeah, you just broke it down. So true.
You want to play.
But they're not ready.
The man wants to plan. You want to play. The man wants to plan. It's 50. He's checking his time. He's got just a few more years. You have all the time to waste. The man needs to be able to swallow, walk you through a mentorship path, a coaching path. It will take that 25 a while
to get before together.
Exactly. It's not the person's fault. You should have married your age mate.
Well, we still need them, right? At the end of the day. So my final question on the show would be, how can an organization resolve a cultural dilemma within the organization?
It depends on what it is. It depends on what that dilemma is, because how we see dilemmas or situations. I'll give you a simple classic issue. You come into the office and you're late. As far as you're concerned, you're just 5 minutes late. As far as the company is concerned, you're late. So you say, well, you don't know what. I mean, this is just 5 minutes. You could actually overlook this 5 minutes. And somebody saying, no, you should be penalized for being late. You should have been here 5 minutes before. Now, we're having these, okay, whatever. A lot of times, it's unfortunate, but believe me, companies need to be more patient. Companies have to have a coaching process. And once we have a conflict, a dilemma means nobody's shifting, right? Eventually, I'm sorry, this will not go down well. Companies need to shift. If you want the culture, the companies to shift, but not shift at the expense of ethos. Because the challenge will now be, if you shift for this person, what about the next person? At one point, you need to be able to draw the line. And when you're onboarding a staff, you need to be able to make certain things very clear at the point of induction to say, look, this is our culture, so that we want to check out, do you have an alignment to what we have here? And if people are looking for a job, they tell you, yeah.
Till they get in and they say no.
They get in. So to solve such a dilemma, I think companies need to be willing to listen. Leaders need to be, willing to listen more, be more objective to what situations, and see how we can adjust certain things that are not going to be detrimental to the overall health of that organization. It's dicey.
This has been a great show, and personally, I think you've answered a lot of questions on the minds of lots of executives and leaders who are currently battling with this particular subject matter. And
but before we go,
okay.
I've seen quite a number of new entrants into the workplace share workplace issues on social media. And a lot of executives frown
at this.
At such. If you got an issue with your boss, go to your boss. Why are you putting it out there on Twitter? And you're going to come back to the same company tomorrow morning and you still expect them to accept you. Why are you telling people? Why don't you tell your boss? Now, if your boss is not doing anything about it, why don't you resign? Why would you be here and dirty linen, wash it on social media? I think a lot of the new entrants into the workforce need to understand that, look, there's professional and there's personal. And draw a clear line. But, sorry, it's interesting.
I think if there are a number of things to actually pick out from this conversation, but I think some of my favorites would be, you need to be one with your message. So you say something, you've written about it, then act it out. Be this culture that you've spoken about. And for leaders, lots of emotional intelligence is so important as we progress, because the workplace is going to keep changing. And you need to evolve and change along with it. Dr. Smith, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Pleasure.
And I can't wait to have you again. It's like a masterclass every time we come here, and we're sure that our viewers are very, very enlightened for every session that you come. Your time is not wasted, and we're really glad that you could make it.
If you're here, I'll come again.
Thank you so much. I hope you already subscribed on social media and, of course, followed the page. So when we drop our next content, you're able to follow up and, of course, get educated. Keep watching. This is CEED Chat, and I am Adekemi Adefisayo.
CEED Academy, your growth partner.